Hey everyone, welcome back to BRAP. Sorry, Miss Wednesday's show. I was under the weather and feeling much better, by the way. Much better. And kind of feel, I guess I could say I feel almost 100%. So, but happy to be back. I have a lot to talk about. And with me this afternoon, depending on what part of the world you are, it could be Sunday morning into the future. But with me on today's show, I have David Faulkner, Falky, who's in another part of the world, in the future. He's coming to us from the future. He's coming to us from July 14th, 2024. Falky, how are you today?
I'm doing quite well, thank you. Yeah, it's a lovely morning trying to happen outside. Good to be here. We made it to Sunday morning, and the world is still as crazy as it was when we left it yesterday.
Yeah. Falky, should I be buying gold? Maybe that's another conversation off air.
If you want to play it safe, you could, but there's a few other parts of the market that are actually doing pretty well if you wanted to make some money.
All right. We may have to speak. We have to talk later on that off air. But great to have you here, Falky. And then we also have Game Logic. Logic, you are a busy man today, sir. You have been doing this is your second podcast in a row.
Actually, if you go back to last night, it's my third.
Actually, you're right. You're third. You were on Doomsayer's show. You were on GCP with Everboard and Kay Asante. Both great shows. I did listen to a little bit of Doomsayer's on last night. Did listen to a lot of the GCP podcast today. And that was really a good conversation, by the way. Really good conversation. And it was one of the better conversations, discourse that I've heard on a podcast in quite some time. Well, I shouldn't say that because we always have good discourse here. So, but one of the better conversations I've heard on a show. So that was great. Slow-Mo was there as well. Big shout out to Slow-Mo Backslap, and then obviously the host. Tip my cap to the host, Kay Asante and Everborn as well. So that was great conversation.
Hey, thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and last but not least, I do want to give a big thank you to everyone here in the live chat. Again, everyone, thank you so much for joining us on this. Well, depending where you are, here it's Saturday afternoon. Could be if you're in the other part of the world, as Falky, you could be listening to us from the future, or if you're a different part of the country, it could be 2 hours or 3 hours behind us here. Oh, we have Brian M in the UK, I believe. Brian, you are 5 hours ahead of East Coast time here in the U.S., I think. No, that's 5 or 7, I think. I don't remember. Anyhow. But no, thank you, everyone. Please do me a favor. Hit that like button if you haven't done so. I will drop a link here in the live chat. Let everyone know we are live. So, all right, gentlemen. Before we get to the gaming-related topics, Falky and I were discussing comics before the show went live. We did get a new trailer for Captain America, Brave New World. Now, I believe, wasn't this, I don't know if Falky or you Logic were following the development of this particular movie, but I thought it was called A New World Order at one point. Or am I mistaken? Did any of you recall if that was the case?
I can't remember. I watch so much wrestling. I don't want to get too confused.
Yes, you don't want to confuse the NWO in wrestling with the New World or Captain America. I feel like it was, and now it's Brave New World. But I did watch the trailer. I'm excited. I'm excited for this. I always, it's funny. I was watching Iron Man the day that I was out sick.
Oh, Brap, sorry. By the way, you are correct. The film, originally titled Captain America: New World Order, abruptly changed its name to Brave New World after a lot of backlash to the original title. I could understand that, given the negative connotations associated with New World Order. But yeah, okay. So, but it's interesting. I always remember your comments of with regards to the MCU Logic that Avengers Endgame was like peak MCU for you. And I can't say I entirely disagree with that. This actually has me very intrigued. And I'll watch, and that's not to say I watch anything Marvel puts out because I'm just, it's my childhood, right? Reading comics, Marvel comics, DC comics, mostly Marvel.
But I thought this one looked pretty interesting. Harrison Ford is in the movie. He is I forgot the character he's playing. Thunderbolt.
He's the
Ross.
new General Thunderbolt Ross.
Yeah, Thunderbolt
replaces,
Ross.
William Hurt.
Yeah, who
passed away, unfortunately.
Yeah, tragically passed away. Yeah, so it's funny. There's that scene there where he's like, I had to shave the mustache because I wouldn't have won the election or something. So kind of there's that there. But we do see a glimpse of the Red Hulk. Giancarlo Esposito is GW Bridge in the movie, and I remember GW Bridge. I believe he was he a part of S.H.I.E.L.D. at one point in the comics? I feel like he was. I don't remember, but I believe he was. I could be wrong, but I believe
the name's
he
not
was.
familiar. But I've always suspected that they were going to do like the storyline I'm familiar with is so the Avengers way back in the day, like in the 80s, used to always have a government liaison, and for a while their government liaison was a guy named Henry Gyrich, who I think he worked with Forge to get like the neutralizer or whatever created to start removing powers from mutants. But I think the way, and I dropped off of comics for a while, I think the way that storyline went is eventually they found out like he was a Skrull or something like that. But I've always felt like they were going to go down a path of like a storyline like that, where they would have somebody who was like a former government or agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. or something who perpetrated some stuff to take heroes down.
Yeah. And then we also get a glimpse of the leader. We hear his voice. We don't see his face, but you see the back of, and you could see in the comics, the leader's like a green color. I think did the leader get exposed to, I forget what it was.
Gamma radiation.
Gamma radiation. Yeah, that's what it was. That's why he turned green.
Well, he's supposed to be, if you remember the Incredible Hulk, right, from the second MCU movie, that guy who was treating
Bruce Banner,
started his transformation. So I don't know if it's the same actor, but that character was kind of intro to the MCU way back then.
Yeah. So we get a glimpse of the leader, and again, there's a lot of that geopolitical undertones in the movie that I liked in the Avengers. So I'm really looking forward to this one. I'm looking forward to it, so we'll see. When does the movie come out now? I forgot. I think it's February of next year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I thought it was. Is it April? It's early 2025.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at here at February 14, 2025. There we go.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah, so Valentine's Day. There you go. There you go. Logically, you take a Valentine's Day date at the movies.
The only thing that's weird to me is Harrison Ford, and he's going to become Red Hulk, and I'm just like, look, I love Harrison Ford.
Is that confirmed? Is he in fact going to be Red Hulk? I mean,
in the comics,
suspected. See, that's what I thought, but I feel like sometimes they dive off they stray a bit at times. I mean. But yeah, you're right. Like he does become, because I think if I remember correctly, Thunderbolt Ross was also obsessed with cloning the Hulk's powers, right?
Well, I mean, the whole thing he's been on about is trying to recreate like the super soldier serum,
super soldier, yep.
And that pursuit gets him turned into a Hulk. And then there is a Thunderbolts movie on the slate, but I didn't think they had, at least what they've advertised right now is that did not include Red Hulk, but and then bring him into the Thunderbolts. That way they want to reveal it, because that would spoil this. But I mean, Harrison Ford's aged, and I just don't know like why you would go down that route of casting it that way.
It's the movies, man. He'll turn into a Hulk. He's superpowers, and then he'll go back to his human form and look like a prune again. It's Hollywood, right? So, what's the leader's name in the comic? What's his name? I can't remember now. I got to go back and look at some of this stuff. But anyhow, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to watching this movie 2025. So Falky, I know you mentioned you lean more heavily DC. Did you get a chance to watch a trailer? If you did, any thoughts?
I haven't seen the trailer yet. Sorry.
Okay.
Didn't even realise the trailer was out. That's how much marketing's happening down here for it. So.
Yeah. Definitely check it out, Falky. Any interest? Yeah, it's a good trailer. So. All right, let's get on to some gaming related topics. We have Circana NPD numbers, and shoot, I just had them up, and I don't know what happened to them. I just lost them. Give me a second. I need to pull these back up. Oh, here we go. Our good buddy Matt Piscatella. And let's see here, Circana. All right, according to Matt Piscatella. Oh, no, that's the wrong one. Hold on. There we go. According to Matt Piscatella, May 2024 U.S. video game market highlights from Circana, formerly NPD. He mentioned that content and accessories fell 6% in May 2024 compared to a year ago to $4 billion year to date. 2024 spending was 2% higher than a year ago at $22.8 billion. And the top 20 best-selling... Oh, shoot. Hold on a sec here. I just lost it again. I'm having issues today. Here we go. All right. I should also note that... I'm sorry. Here we go. May 2024 top 20 best-selling premium games in the U.S. This is physical and digital, and this is from Digital Data Sharing Publishers. Excludes add-on content. Ghosts of Tsushima actually was number one. Now that game did release on PC. Number two was Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. Number three was Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. 4, Helldivers 2. Helldivers is having one hell of a year. 5, MLB The Show 2024. 6, Sea of Thieves. Sea of Thieves released on the PlayStation platform now. 7 was Minecraft. 8, Elden Ring. The Archery DLC. People are getting ready for that. And I do believe, I think it was... Let's go back and look at this. Maybe it was Game Industry Biz that reported, maybe it was Chris String, over like 400% increase or something in Elden Ring sales. But number 9 was Hogwarts Legacy. That thing has legs, by the way. It was number 9 the previous month. Stellar Blade, which was number 1 the previous month, is now number 10. Fallout 4 is number 11. EA Sports FC is 12. Marvel Spider-Man 2 was 13. Homeworld 3 was number 14. Mario Kart 8, 15. Madden NFL 24 was 16. Rise of the Ronin was 17. F1 24, 18. There you go, Logic. Mortal Kombat 1, 19. And Dragon's Dogma 2 rounded off at 20. So those are the top-selling games for the month of May 2024 here in the U.S. Any thoughts on the top 20, gentlemen?
Your top 20 US based off sales was interesting to see that how low in the year to date rather than the month to date ones, that Helldivers 2 was still edging out Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3.
Yeah, that's on the year to date. Yeah, best games year to date. Yeah, we'll get to that here in a second. Yeah, yep.
Yeah, but it's also interesting to see just what is in the mix. There's not many online multiplayer games sitting in there. Again, because these are based off game sales rather than revenue generated by games. So, yeah, it's an interesting list, but it doesn't really match up with the top 10 most played games or revenue generating games. So it's curious, I guess.
All right, go ahead, Logic.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if there's been a chilling effect on Call of Duty sales based on people speculating that it's going to show up in Game Pass at some point.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, there could be people waiting. I mean, there's, and I don't know if it's been confirmed. I thought it was. I'd have to go back and look, but there was.
Yeah, I think it was an Insider Gaming article. So
was it? Okay. So it's not confirmed then.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So there's speculation that Modern Warfare 3 will be entering Game Pass at some point shortly in the near future. But yeah, I mean, that I don't disagree with you, Logic. That could be, the chilling effect could be people just, okay, you know what, we're going to wait. This thing could be coming to Game Pass. The one thing that I've, with Helldivers 2 coming at number 4, the one thing that at least just, if I'm looking at the top 10, Logic, and you know, we've had a conversation about the impact, the importance of exclusives, contrary to some of that narrative that's out there that, oh, you know, just peanut butter your games as you say, peanut butter your games everywhere, Logic, as you would say. That even some of these exclusive games are still doing pretty well. You know, and this isn't. I don't think this is something. And this isn't uncommon, by the way. We do see exclusive content when released frequently make it into the top 10.
You've got 7 in the top 20 total, right?
You do, yes. You have Rise of the Ronin is an exclusive to PlayStation. Well, that's 17. Yeah, top 20. Mario Kart 8, Spider-Man 2. That's 3. Stellar Blade is up there too. Fallout 4 is now. I guess could you consider that's multiplat?
Yeah.
So Stellar Blade 4. Yeah. CFD's multiplat out. MLB The Show's multiplat. Helldivers is 5, and then Ghost of Tsushima, Paper Mario 6, 7. You're right, 7 in the top 20. All right, and then we have. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, it'll lead into an interesting conversation going forward. If a couple of things that are expected to pan out over the next sort of 4 to 6 months is, what do we define as an exclusive? And is something being exclusive to a publisher or a ecosystem the same as being exclusive to a console or PC? That will be interesting to see how that pans out over the next 4 to 6 months.
So I have made my decision, actually quite recently, that I will continue to stand on the square that the term exclusive refers to a game that is that is exclusive to a console. So I don't care if it's on PC, I don't care if it's on mobile, I don't care if it's on a Samsung TV. If it is only on Nintendo Switch or Xbox or PlayStation, then I will continue using that label, calling it an exclusive. This whole thing of you Gen Z and Gen Alpha people out there trying to say something's not exclusive because it's also on PC, I'm dispensing with that rubbish. You guys tried to retcon that after the tried to do a Thanos reverse snap and bring that back. No, we're not doing that. It's the way that we've always used the term, and that it is whether or not it is a console exclusive.
Yeah, I've always thought of console exclusives as specific to a console platform, regardless if it's on PC. Like I've never thought anything different. But
yeah, because PCs are elitists, and you know we get what we get. So, but there are lots of people who are only on console. So
yeah. No, I hear you, Logic. That's fair. I hear you. I do want to move on to year date ending May 2024. This is Falky. You mentioned this earlier. Helldivers 2, still the top selling game of 2024, edging out Call of Duty, which is Modern Warfare 3, which is at number 2. That's interesting. And if I'm not mistaken, go ahead.
I do want to do one alibi.
Yeah, go ahead.
I do apologize about those, but it's important. So, friend of the show, Ramon Terrell, is part of the cast of Homeworld 3, and Homeworld 3 is number 14 on this list. So, big shout out to Ramon Terrell.
Oh, okay. But yeah, you know what? I didn't. For some reason, I didn't know that. Go ahead, Falky.
I was just agreeing with Logic. Absolutely, massive shout out to him. Congratulations to him and the whole team.
Yeah, congratulations to the team and to Ramon Terrell, good friend of the show. That is awesome. I'm gonna have to message Ramon later on. That is fantastic. But yeah, this is I think this is the second year in a row now that Call of Duty at this I think at this point or this time of the year hasn't been number one top selling game, because I believe last year it was Hogwarts Legacy. Is that Am I remembering that correctly, gentlemen?
I believe so.
And I don't know if Hogwarts Legacy, I don't think it ended up finishing top-selling game in 2023. I'd have to go back and look. But it was top-selling for quite some time over Call of Duty. So so here you have Helldivers 2. Clearly, this has been a great success for Sony PlayStation, or for Sony. Kind of a game. Again, I'll go back and say I didn't have a lot of. Just watching some of the trailers, some of the in-game footage you were showing, I was kind of surprised still surprised by the success it's seeing, but success nonetheless. It's doing very well. So, Call of Duty's number 2, Dragon's Dogma 2 is number 3, MLB The Show 24 is number 4, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is the 5th top-selling game of 2024, despite the narrative that it tanked because it wasn't released on multiple platforms. It's somehow been able to etch out number 5 as top-selling game of 2024. Tekken 6 is number 8. Madden 24 is number 7. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is 8. Hogwarts Legacy is number 9. That game is pretty money for WB. Persona 3 Reload is number 10. You brought up a great point today on GCP regarding Persona 3 Logic, sitting at number 10, best top selling game in 2024. NBA, go ahead.
We can't ignore games that are charting on MPD and by the market rubric selling well, based solely on they're not Fortnite, or they're not Call of Duty, or they're not some other 800-pound gorilla that's sucking a lot of air out of the room. The number of publishers and developers that are hitting games at those marks is incredibly small, and the vast majority of the rest of the market, right, is in competition for the rest of everything that's left over. And so when those games hit those metrics, like it is significant. It does provide an incentive of what studios and publishers go after, because the alternative is, let's make a thing that's like Call of Duty or Fortnite or a COD killer or Fortnite killer. That also means that that's their competitive market. And as we've discussed many times on this show, like the competitive market of the number of games that the market's going to sustain of that ilk is very small, because gamers aren't going to play. If a gamer's playing COD and Fortnite, that's all they're playing. If a gamer's going to play one of those, they're not going to go out and seek like another alternative that comes along. That competitive market is very intense. So publishers and developers, studios are going after, other stuff, other genres that is going to perform well on the market, and that's what you see formulated by those other components of the MPD list.
Yeah, that's a great point, Logic. I think it also speaks to the diversity of the market. Something that you touched upon, Falky, on Crossfire, which if you mind sharing that again, what you mentioned about the pie. It's a point that really stood out to me, Falky, because to me, like when we talk about games like Call of Duty, the Roblox, the Fortnites, and then you look at Circana, right? You look at the top selling games that are pay to play, as we call them. A lot of them are single player games. I think this speaks to me, at least it resonated when I look at this. What resonates is what you said on Crossfire Thursday with how big the pie is. And could you share that again? Because I thought it was a great point on Thursday night.
I'll try and remember how I put it. I think what I said was, gaming industry as a whole, is the biggest part, is huge. It's the biggest in terms of revenue generation, entertainment section. It's bigger than movies. It's bigger than music. It's the biggest entertainment, biggest part of the entertainment industry. Full stop. But the pie is so big, and it's got so much, so many different facets to it, that you can chop it up so many different ways, and everyone gets a big chunk of it. Because things like Fortnite, yes, they're huge, and Call of Duty's huge, and all the rest of it is huge, but in the grand scheme of the whole pie, it's single-digit percentages, and they're not big in terms of its amount of the whole pie. It's so big that you can find a very successful and profitable part and carve that out for yourself.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I think that's the point I think people miss. We always talk about that level of nuance when we have conversations around the gaming industry that people miss, that the pie is so big and that you can carve out a slice, a niche, if you will, find your own lane and be successful in that own lane without, driving the level of engagement of Fortnite, right? And that is a dynamic that can in fact happen. I mean, you look at, I'll use Stellar Blade as an example. I mean, Stellar Blade isn't, I think they sold about, 1 million copies or so. And that game has been a success for Shift Up. Was it you who mentioned that Shift Up just released an IPO in Korea?
I wouldn't. It might be me plus 100,000 other people who kept an eye on it. But yeah, they did an IPO last week, raised 320 million or something, and second biggest IPO launch in Korea in I think the last year or 2 years or something. So, and that's off the back of that success, and what their next phase looks like. Obviously, they're gearing up to do something. They've already mentioned their next game is going to be. They're attempting to put their next game multi-platform, but they haven't signed any agreements yet, or haven't discussed what they're doing. But not too bad for a small mobile developer to take a stab and produce something like that. And did well. Yeah.
And again, a game that is going to, given the maybe mature nature of the game and how the characters present it, a game that's going to probably appeal to a certain segment of the gaming population. But still, I mean, again, an example of a smaller game, not doing 20 million sold or generating Fortnite type numbers, but found a lane that they could find success in, have done well, and that success is yielding additional projects. I believe they are. There's some conversation about a potential sequel to Stellar Blade as well. So that was
something. Yeah, something that a lot of people, and I'll take a slight step off the main path here, just for a brief moment. But a lot of people oversimplify, we'll put it that way, when they talk about games and the gaming market and all the rest of that. And it happened a fair bit on Mooch's show the other day that I don't know if they intentionally honed in on this, but it certainly felt like it, that there's this hyperfixation on one or two games and it becomes blown up to be the entire gaming industry hinges off this notion that Fortnite is the be-all and end-all, and if you can't beat Fortnite, there's no point trying. Or COD is the be-all and end-all, and if you can't beat COD, there's no point trying. And we see a lot of it with this, even today's stuff, with the Concord open beta that's happening this weekend. Or if you can't beat Valorant, there's no point trying. As I said before, the market is so big, and Stellar Blade is the best example you can give. It doesn't cost a fortune to make games if you make them right and if you make them smartly, and if you don't have a huge corporate overhead and a huge global company to support with the sales you need to make and all the rest of that. If you can find a smart way of doing it that's cheap and effective, doesn't have to mean that the game is cheap and rubbish. Just find a very cost-effective way of building the game, getting the game to market and selling it to people. You can be quite successful. Something like Fortnite, if they didn't regenerate or refresh that game every month, or every 3 months they're popping out a new map change, or they've got this new character thing coming through, they didn't do that, the thing wouldn't be anywhere near as popular as it is. It costs them an absolute bomb to keep that thing running. And that's the only thing that over 1,000 people are doing every month. Coming up with new ways and new ideas to keep things going in that game. And basically refreshing the game. What Fortnite is today is not even close to what it was 6 months ago. And 6 months ago is a completely different game in terms of look, feel, and everything else as to what it was 6 months before that. They've refreshed the thing so frequently, it's ridiculous. But then you get other games where they make it once and they make it good and they sell 1 million plus of it and it becomes a roaring success. And that's it. It's done. They don't have to worry about refreshing stuff. They pump out a couple of patches and they've been very successful. And very successful for all involved. So, the sharing of the risk and the acceptance of who's getting what, it's margins and all the rest of it, because people love to talk about margins without understanding them properly. There's different elements of success here. And depending on how things have been structured and how something's been brought to the market depends on whether we get more of it or not. But it certainly seems that there's a shift, and there's two schools of thought on this. One of it is the risk is too much for the big publishers. We need to de-risk. So we'll either buy up studios and try and force them to do what we want and accept that that's going to cost us a lot of money, and when they underperform, we'll dump them. Or we develop partnerships with third-party studios and we support those studios, and it doesn't cost us hundreds of millions of dollars to make a game, but we'll take the publishing rights and we'll take all this other stuff so that as a publisher we can claw back a heap more revenue and hit our margins, and then the third party doesn't have to have all that risk of funding it and finding more funding sources and run the risk of the thing, if it is delayed, that it never sees the light of day. That is de-risking it to a point where things like Stellar Blade and Rise of the Ronin and some of these other games that are popping up on Switch, and certainly a lot of these games that are popping up on Steam are coming from. It's identifying how you can get it to happen. Again, because the pie is so big, success can come in many different forms and factors. But when the commentary hyperfixates on Fortnite or COD, again, COD still takes over 3,000 people to make it every iteration. It's ridiculously expensive. How they're going to give that thing away for free, I don't know why anyone thought that was ever going to happen. But it's, if you hyperfixate on something like that as your argument point, you're missing over 95%, 96% of the entirety of everything else, which effectively makes your point null and void. So don't expect that you're going to have success in an argument by saying, oh, if it can't beat Fortnite or it can't beat Valorant or it can't beat, COD, there's no point doing it. 2K is going to have a crack at a soccer game again. Wouldn't surprise me if Konami had a crack at a soccer game again. They don't have to be better than FC24 or whatever EA is calling their football game. It doesn't have to be better, but an alternative can still be quite successful.
Yeah, that's a great point, Twiki. Go ahead, Logic.
It brings up a good point in the discussion on Concord, and I too have been disappointed by a lot of the dialogue. I think part of the problem is people aren't entirely thinking through what is that game supposed to do and what is its positioning within the PlayStation portfolio. Like, it should be obvious that with the number of titles that they're trying to launch as games as a service, there's not one single overwhelming intention for any one of them to become the next Fortnite or the next COD. What it looks like they're doing, and when you look at the titles that they're putting together, and people have said, oh, well, it's not free to play, it's not this, it's not that. I mean, so let's look at the market and let's look at what has gotten traction on the market. And let's look at where there are competitive opportunities to go at a space. So you look at Overwatch. Overwatch found traction. That's your hero shooter. You also look at Rainbow Six Siege, which doesn't really get referred to as a hero shooter, but that's pretty much essentially what it is. It's a little more in the direction of a hardcore first-person shooter, but all of those operators have unique capabilities. And people invest in figuring out which ones to play, which ones they're good at, and they tend to stick with those characters. So what you have is an opportunity, because Overwatch has started to fall off a bit, has become less popular. And yes, while it might be paid, the point is that there's an opportunity to go at that space. So what does Concord need to do? Does it need to be COD or Fortnite? No. Your install base of the PlayStation 5 is 50 million. So you're looking to establish traction amongst an addressable market that is only those people, plus your PC people. You're not looking, I don't think, to score some overwhelming victory. You're looking to cultivate a small erstwhile group that will get on that game and stick with the game. Because the other thing is, again, you look at Concord, you look at Overwatch, you look at how those games play. You also look at Siege, and in particular, maybe Siege a little less so, but those games appeal to people who play in consistent squads that stick together, that play together all the time and stay on the game. And that's what you're going at. So I think the market play of that particular game is less than the thing that people are kind of blaming it for not living up to. I think the thing that they're trying to say that it needs to live up to is not the thing that's the market play for that game at all.
And because it's not full free to play, it's pay for base plus whatever ends up happening. They de-risk the issue there as well, which is sensible because you've got an install base that's used to paying for stuff. Fair enough. That's their condition to that, but that's also a smart way of maintaining a successful business. Don't give your shit away free if it's got some value. They sell it for $30, and then it's got all this additional buy-on microtransaction stuff that makes sense and people enjoy it. Well, great. But they sell 5 million at $30. Well, that'd be a roaring success.
Yeah, I don't disagree, Logic and Falky. I think I never looked at this as like the and I never looked at this as the like Overwatch killer or the next big thing. And I know people tend to do that. Because you look at like Helldivers 2, that was never like, I don't think it was the intent of Sony to be like the next big thing. I think the intent was, let's put a good game out that's going to keep gamers, engaged, or attract new gamers, keep them engaged, and see what happens, And I've always, yeah, go ahead, Falky.
I was going to say, if you think about it from this perspective, to give some, I suppose some different perspective, Overwatch 2 and a couple of the other hero shooters, they've all had drop off because there's this, I don't know, the hardcore gamer or the ones that love that game, they disenfranchise because, it's not exactly what I want, it's not this and it's not that. If they had across PlayStation and PC 2 million of those, that fan base that just pick it up and try it, and they get 500,000 of them to hang on for 12 to 18 months, that's going to make them a lot of money. Or, they picked up Firewalk Studios for less than 200 million.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's small chicken feed. It's a bet. It's a safe bet, and it's always an opportunity that when you see customers of other items, similar items, get disgruntled with what they're currently being offered, that just grabbing the scraps is probably the terminology best to use. Just grabbing the scraps and turning that into something profitable. There's no problem with that. And more to the point, people love to belt PlayStation over the head day in, day out about them not trying new things. The second they try something new, they belt them over the head for trying something new. So it's anybody who's like that, you can go do one because your opinion is effectively null and void at this point.
Well, I was about to
brat.
Yeah, I was about to say that, Falky. And it's not just Concord, by the way. It's other games. We see this this looks like a Souls game. Oh, it's and it's like, or this looks like, it's like, or it needs to be this or that. It's like, and then they complain, oh, well, you know what? Like the developers aren't trying anything new, and it's like, you can't have it both ways. New isn't necessarily mean that it needs to be like Overwatch or Fortnite,
There's a reason why Riot are bringing the Valorant to consoles. They're losing players in PC area, and they need a new install base to appeal to, because they can't afford to keep losing them. And everyone's like, oh, these massive, because they stream them and they're this and that and all the rest of it. Like, the big online games are running at super thin margins at the moment that some of them aren't even profitable anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Keep that in mind.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. All right. I do want to move on to the top 10 titles played on PlayStation 5 in the U.S. Number 1 was Fortnite. 2 is Call of Duty. 3 is Grand Theft Auto 5. 4 is NBA 2K24. New entry here, XDefiant. I haven't played XDefiant. I think Logic. I think you played it, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I'm putting a significant amount of time into it. Yep.
Yeah. What are your thoughts so far?
Oh man, let me try and summarize in less than 30 minutes, because I've spent probably about an hour talking about this game between the multiple podcasts over the last week. I think the key things are. I've said the key thing it needs to do is it needs to break out with its own identity that is more than just being the anti-COD. Right? Like when you want people to talk about XDefiant, you don't just want them to say, well, it doesn't do this like COD. It doesn't do that like COD. It needs its own particular unique identity. And I feel like some of the design choices and implementations, I don't know that they were as much deliberate as much as they were, well, we just need our movement to not be like COD. So there are some things that work well, there are some things that don't. Like overall, like the movement isn't too bad, but like for instance, like I hate mantling. And I'm like, I don't know that this was the way to do the thing. And it feels like it was just a thing to do to differentiate it from COD. The second thing I would say is because of the differences in movement, there's you walk into it with a hope and a belief that the movement kitty stuff isn't there, but those people are there. It doesn't completely and entirely eliminate it. So you kind of have to get your, if you are a, bunny hopper, and there is no prone, so you can't jump to prone, that kind of stuff. Camping, there, you would like to believe that there's not camping because people can't go prone, but there is camping. It's just like a different kind of camping. But a more egregious design flaw that needs to be tweaked and addressed and tuned is that, and I'm playing the welcome playlist, which forces you to play a lot of the modes, and I don't think gives you access to what is the straight up team deathmatch type, which is fine because it's been neat playing a lot of the modes. They have Occupy, which is essentially like COD's hard point. They have Domination, just like the other Domination, although it plays out a little differently just in the dynamic of the maps. But then there's Escort, which is my most hated game mode. But what I will say is like the bellwether of whether or not I have a good night in XDefiant or not is entirely based on whether or not I have good escort matches or bad escort matches, because that mode is one of the most infuriating when you lose, but it is also one of the most like pride-inducing when you do win. And there's lots of dynamics.
Sounds like a Souls boss.
Well, there's lots of dynamics around like are you facing a team who's on comms? Because if you're facing a team that's on comms, that's a squad, you're not going to win. The way they can chop your team of randos up and make everybody like show up at the escort to defend or attack, and you be by yourself is just not, just makes it not plausible. And those are the nights when I've had matches that I've really hated. Is I keep showing up at the escort and I'm like I'm double, triple, quadruple teamed because like no one else from my team is there, and I'm like, where the hell are you guys? So there's that, but I think one of the big things they need to tweak in terms of the map size and the escort mission is on certain maps, in particular Zoo, which is again the map that I hate the most. It is feasible for the defending team to sprint from their spawn point the entire length of the map, show up and camp outside your gates so that as soon as your gates open, there's an entire team outside each spawn point to just take you out. And there's nothing you can do to defend against that unless you have a unless you have people who are playing Echelon, who use the active intel perk, and then they light off their active intel perk like 2 seconds before the doors open, so that you can ping and see the opposing team on the other side of the door. So there's a few multiple problems with that, how that dynamic works out, because so first of all, it drives everybody on the attacking team or on the escort team to all be Echelon. So nobody's using like the other perks. That's one. So everybody's a melee. But then the other thing is, it's just, I guess people, because I'm in that pool of people who are just learning the game. You just get like, so the team is 5 melees. Everybody lights off their active intel perk. So like everybody's ping is depleted for the first like 10 seconds of the match. And then they all, like half of them set it off at the wrong time. So they set it off too early. So by the time the gates go open, you've actually lost tracking on the, so it's just some dynamic tuning that needs to be done. But that being said, overall, I'm having a good time playing the game.
Okay. No, I appreciate that feedback. A game I'd like to try. I just don't have the time to do it right now. So I'm still, quite heavily involved in the Urtry DLC, so thank you for that. Thank you for that logic. Then I think I rounded out the list here. I didn't actually. Roblox was 5th. Madden 24 was 7th. Fallout 4 was 8th. Minecraft was 11. Multiverses went from 121 to 10. By the way. And then the top 10 titles played on the Xbox Series consoles. Fortnite, number 1. Top 3, very almost identical to PlayStation 5. But Fortnite, number 1. Call of Duty, 2. Call of Duty HQ 2. Roblox 3. Minecraft 5. Grand Theft Auto 5. 4. XDefiant was 6. NBA 2K24 7. Fallout 4 8. Rainbow Six Siege 9. Madden NFL 24 was number 10. So I tell you that the knock-on effect of the Fallout show has been great for the Fallout games. It's actually it left me wanting, after watching that show, it left me wanting to play more Fallout. I would have loved to see them release maybe a remake of some sorts, or maybe a new Fallout to release next to the release of the Amazon Prime show Fallout. So
a couple things on these lists in particular. So I asked Matt, who didn't respond to me, what these lists mean and what metrics are actually driving these lists.
Oh, that's a great question.
So I think at this point we do not know what drives this list. We don't know whether it's downloads or logins or actual hours played, and that's the critical thing. So I don't know right now, just today, I don't know that they have the statistical relevancy that we have just been intuitively trying to connote, in association with these metrics, right? That this is what people are playing the most, because I don't know that it means that. Because the PlayStation blog also puts out, like, every month its most frequently downloaded games for the month. And we realized on E2KG, when we were going over this a couple of weeks ago, over that list, we were like, we're not absolutely certain we know what this means anymore, because there's never free-to-play games on that list. There's never Fortnite or Warzone or things like that. So we don't know. So again, and we don't know that re-downloads don't count. So I think it's just a matter of, I think we've hit recently on that there's some mystification behind these numbers where we don't really know what they mean. The other trigger on this is because, while Matt puts out the top 10, he mentioned in a later tweet that he's been getting a lot of questions about where Hellblade 2 fell in this list, and he came out separately and said that it was number 12. Now, the problem I had with that, when I put that through the smell test, is like, well, I've played Hellblade 2 up through chapter 5, and at the chapter 5 point, I saw that like less than 20% of players, I think it was down at like 15 or 16%, had proceeded that far in the game. So I'm like, again, us saying that it's, number 12 on the engagement list, now I'm looking at that in comparison to the people who proceeded through 80 or 90% of the game. The game's only like 6 to 8 hours long. I'm like, clearly that number, like, believing that number equates to how, people actually sticking with the game and staying engaged in the game and putting hours into the game, clearly those things don't equate. Like, something's not passing the smell test. So again, he didn't respond to that, but I mean, I'm I'm prone to give these numbers a little less credence maybe than we have in the past.
The other thing to just tag onto that though is this is US only. This isn't global.
Yeah, and when you do look at that data in the other company who puts those out, they don't put them out as frequently. Sometimes you don't see those numbers. You only see those numbers like annually. They can swing wildly different from what these numbers show.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, and I had that in there not mainly because you'll see that there's not a lot of Nintendo games in those lists. But that doesn't stop them from being massive sells because Nintendo does nearly 50% of its volume outside of the US, whereas PlayStation and Xbox not so much.
Yeah, the other thing too, to your point, Logic, a lot of us, myself included, I mean, we look at those like those numbers and we kind of, without knowing, like, I think I forgot the exact question you asked, Matt, like how are you counting those numbers? Like, is it somebody who signs in for 5 minutes? And I don't think, I think you've asked him this question before. I could be wrong, but I feel like you have, and I don't think he's answered. But I even wonder if Matt even knows if that's something that the publishers would even share with him. Because you're right, like we don't know how they're counting or arriving to those numbers. Like, is it someone signing in for a couple of minutes, just trying the game for 10, 15 minutes? Is that check a user box? We just don't know. But a lot of people do put a lot of weight behind that and say, oh, well, look how many people played the game. What does that mean? And how does that transition? Falky, I've talked about this. How does that transition to dollars and cents? Right? A lot of the times we just don't know that.
Right. Because these lists are called Xbox Series ranked by U.S. monthly active users, PlayStation or played on Steam ranked by U.S. monthly active users, the PlayStation by monthly active users, and I mean, and we know from the kind of rope-a-dope that Xbox tries to pull when it puts out its metrics that for years we've known that saying, hey, 30 million people have played Forza Horizon 5 is nowhere indicative of number of people who actually played the game and stuck with the game. When you then go and see achievements of like people who didn't even finish like the first basic like tutorial or whatever.
Exactly. But I've always argued the point too that at the end of the day, like, what is that? And I know I just said this, I'm repeating myself, but what does that mean, dollars and cents? Like, how is that transitioning to revenue to the business?
Well, what it would mean is that there's an exponential, there's a curvilinear relationship between MAU and revenue generated, which means the overall ARPU is much more diluted, right? Because you have a large number of users who aren't actually participating in the game long enough to actually be driving any type of revenue, and you get to a smaller pool of customers that are financially viable and actually mean something in terms of driving your bottom line.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And by the way, ARPU, for those who don't know, is average revenue per user. People tend to look at, I always say this, I kind of argue with people on Twitter about this. I look at the MAU, I'm like, ARPU is really the telling number. That's the number. Yeah, go ahead, Falky.
I want there. I got a bone. There's a bone I'm going to pick on this one, and it's not picking with you here, but there's a bone I'm going to pick on this one. The engagement bullshit that they come up with this RPO or ARPO, average revenue per user, and all the rest of it. In these subscription services, where the Microsoft theory is the more engagement, the more revenue we allocate to that game to determine whether it's a success or not, it doesn't actually have a direct correlating metric. If more people engage and use it, then it gets an allocation of the revenue that's generated for that month. That's completely subjective, and it's got no reflection on how it's performed or not. So it could be number one game played this week, and it could be not touched again ever. But if it stays in the top 10, it will, and it's 15 or 20% of the engagements for the month, then it'll get 15 to 20% of the revenue for the month allocation. And then they'll say, yeah, it was a roaring success. And then that's it. And it's completely subjective. It is completely open to what other games are coming through there. So it's completely manipulatable. But the words are big at this time of the morning. And so does the cost point of this. And I had a conversation with someone on Twitter about this, and I could clearly see that they were not understanding what was going on. If you can openly and subjectively elect to allocate revenue and expenditure to different games within the studios that you hold the ability to manipulate internally alone, then you do the same with the external ones. So obviously there's third-party games that go into Game Pass and they go into PS Plus and all the rest of it. But those third-party games would be base fee plus percentage of engagement, because if you're not doing that as part of your third-party offering in the Game Pass, you're an idiot. But if they're choosing which games are going to get the revenue based off user interaction, and it comes straight back to exactly what Logic started this thing with. How are they determining that number? What's the science behind this information? And if it's not clear enough, and I'm not having to go at Matt, I think Matt does a great job with the resources he's got and the things he needs to do. But it's like anything. If we don't understand the exact science and there's no set formula or no set regulation that all of them are adhering by, then how the hell do we know what it is? Monthly active users for Activision was based off individual accounts that engage with a game. So one person could have been counted 10 times. The PlayStation does it different. They go unique accounts based off people's logins who've used it in the last week of the last month of a month. Oh, okay, cool. So if it's been a quiet week or in that month, then that's the number. That's what fluctuates up and down so much. But you know, they're totally different. And we go, all right, well, cool. Well, if has the game been successful or not? Well, they shut down Tango Gameworks because of stupid reasons, and they say, oh, I didn't perform. Well, of course it didn't friggin' perform. Hi-Fi Rush was shadow dropped into the service and no one touched it. How do they expect it to then perform? And it's the same with Hellblade 2. Hellblade 2 gets a couple of days worth of promotional work. Everybody knows that it's coming. They sit back and look at it, and it's a 6 to 8 hour game, and did it get to the top spot or did it not get to the top spot? Well, it may have, but how did they allocate the revenue to it? And if they didn't get enough revenue allocation to cover the costs, well, then they're on the chopping block. So, but they would be on the chopping block because that's what management decided when they did the allocation. And it's the same with the cost stuff and all the rest of it. It gets allocated on margins, headcounts, and monthly active user inputs. And this month it could be great, next month it could be horrible. How are you going to get a baseline or actual genuine understanding of whether these things are performing or not is beyond most people who can do basic maths. Because if it's going to keep fluctuating, you can't nail it down to say whether it is or isn't. And I take great dislike in putting that across, but saying that, you know, Hellblade 2 could be a massive success because of player counts, but then they shut the studio down because it's a commercial flop. Well, that's because they chose to make it a commercial flop. Like, there's some logic that goes on in these managers, senior management brains that makes most bean counters just look at them like they've got drool hanging out both sides of their mouth. It's like, can you guys actually breathe without instruction? Or
so yeah. So let me ask you throw this question to you, Falky and Logic. And I heard you say that there's no way for them to predict how a game might behave, right? The following month, let's say, right, with active users. Are they not like models that they're running to try to predict what that might look like, what the fallout might look like? Are they? There's nothing like that they're running, or could run, I should say.
There'd be a model that they would run, but it's less around the estimation on the forecasting, and it's more around, once it happens, can we manipulate this thing to make it look like it met our forecast? Because
one of the things that I just read, and I don't mean to go on Xbox tangent here, but one of the things that that was reported on that we heard was that at times studios didn't understand what defined success within Game Pass, and that's kind of why I'm asking that question, because at least I would imagine that there'd have to be some kind of baseline, right, of where you need to grow, right? Q1, Q2, Q3. I'm just saying, using quarterly growth as an example. What you're suggesting, Falky, is that may not necessarily be the case. Am I understanding that correctly?
Sorry, is that in relation to revenue, or is that in relation to something else?
In relation to the monthly active user count, like, and how that ties in everything else.
Oh, so yeah, depending on how you calculate it, again, every company's doing it differently. You would expect that there'd be some bumps and some drops depending on what you're doing, but relating that back down to revenue, and then getting that revenue through the sheets, income statements, and comprehensive income statements and cash flow statements to get it back down to earnings per share shareholders. It's just it's so different across each organisation that unless you really dive in and read through all the notes and all the information that they're providing and understand how, from a bean counter's point of view,
I get the sense, Falky, by the way,
how to read it.
Falky, I get the sense that as a bean counter, this drives you mad. It's like, guys, what are you like? I could tell. And I only chuckle because I've come across other bean counters who I know this would drive him mad. Like, guys, we need exact numbers here. Like, what's happening?
We're perfectionists. This is the problem.
Yeah, no, I know.
Most of us are perfectionists, and we need to be perfectionists because we want to get the right answer, because the wrong answer is detrimental to everyone's health, right?
No, to the business, absolutely.
Yeah. But and it's just varies so much. But if you've got, I suppose I'll try and simplify it back so I can at least attempt to answer your question.
Keep going with the TED Talk, sir.
You've got a monthly active users number, and that monthly active users number increases, but your revenue does not. You, as Logic said earlier, you are diluting your average revenue per user, which also means that you've got more users, so your cost is going to increase. So now you've just made your margin smaller. And then when you have all your overhead componentry come in, regardless of whether it's in on allocation or on direct input, however it gets in there, your margin at the bottom is still going to squeeze even more, which means there's less earnings per share at a net income level. Then when you run something through the comprehensive cash flow, so you can bring in all your ins and outs that you haven't got on your profit and loss that are sitting in the balance sheet, if you get to a negative point there, like Take-Two is currently at the moment, you'll have negative earnings per share, which means that not only is the shareholder not getting growth in their earnings, they're actually going backwards because they're not getting the returns that they were promised. That is a major problem, and that is when an organization cannot link an increase in revenue to an increase in monthly active users. That was what happens.
Yeah.
And it's very visible. And I mean very visible to shareholders and when that happens. I can't stress to you enough, if you want to see a great case of things not going well, go and have a look at the quarterly financial reports for Take-Two. It is not fun reading if you're a shareholder. And if you extrapolate that out to when they expect to launch Grand Theft Auto 6, GTA 6 is going to have to cover about $5 billion worth of revenue on top of what it would have already been expected to do as a game launch.
It's in the first
year. In the first year, just to catch the earnings per share back up for the shareholders. People wonder why they bought Gearbox. They've got to stem that somehow.
Yeah.
So, and that comes from, and that's not just coming from monthly active users increasing. That's coming from monthly active users not generating more revenue, which is the issue like we were talking about Hellblade 2 before, it was number 12 on the list. Great, it was number 12 on the list because a few people bought it. It wasn't exactly a high-paying game, and most people played it inside the subscription service, and the subscription service is not going forward, clearly, because they're raising the prices and stopping all this other stuff.
Yeah, which we'll get to shortly, yeah.
Yeah. Does that make it a success? Well, it may make it a success internally, because if it was a number one played game, then it'll get a fair chunk of the revenue allocation.
Yeah.
But the MAU increase, not making things look good for them.
Yeah. No, thank you for that, Falky. I appreciate it. By the way, we have about over 100 people here watching. Please hit that like button. Helps out the show. Helps people find the show as well. I do want to go to Circana's top 10 Steam games ranked monthly active users for the month of May. Helldivers 2, number 1. Counter-Strike 2, number 2. Fallout 4, number 3. Destiny 2, number 4. Baldur's Gate 3, which is the game of the millennia, number 5. I think you would agree with me there, Hamp. It's an amazing game. V Rising 6. Rocket League 7. Hades 2, 8. Elden Ring 9. Gray Zone Warfare 10. All right, the top 10 best-selling premium games on PlayStation platforms are Call of Duty, number 1. These are the, hold on a second. Call of Duty, number 1. MLB The Show 24, number 2. Sea of Thieves, number 3. Sea of Thieves has found its sea legs. Trying to make a joke there. Sea of Thieves is actually doing really well on the PlayStation platform. Stellar Blade 4. Helldivers 2 is 5. Marvel Spider-Man 2 is 6. Minecraft is 7. Rise of the Ronin is 8. Elden Ring is number 9. Madden NFL 24 is 10. You know what? The pet peeve that I have is the narratives they often go around. Especially, you guys remember the Insomniac thing, the leaks, Sony's Hiroki Totoki talking about games and the guys running around with, or the need to increase profit margins with game development, and Spider-Man 2 being a flop. And here you have Spider-Man number 6 as that's in the top 10 best-selling games on top of the millions it had sold at release. So anyhow,
it's high risk, high reward.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. May 2024's top 10 best-selling premium games on Xbox. Call of Duty's number 1, Minecraft 2, Elden Ring 3, EA Sports FC 24 4, Hogwarts Legacy 5, F1 24 6. Logic, are you playing F1 24? I meant to ask you that earlier because that was on the top 20 MPD that we mentioned, that we covered earlier in the show.
Hours or so in it. I haven't played in the last week, but it is one of the games in the rotation this year. Yep.
Okay. Forza Horizon 5 is 7, Fallout 4 8, Call of Duty Black Ops 3 is 9, and Mortal Kombat 1 is 10. And then top 10 best-selling premium games on Nintendo. 1 is Paper Mario: The 1,000-Year Door. Mario Kart 8 is number 2. How many copies of Mario Kart 8 sold now? Like 70 million? Hey, it's up there, right? I feel like last time a lot, right? Definitely over 30 million. Mario Kart is, I mentioned, number 2. Princess Peach Showtime 3. Super Mario Brothers Wonder 4. Hogwarts Legacy 5. Minecraft 6. Super Smash Brothers Ultimate 7. Pokemon Scarlet Violet 8. Mario Party Superstars 9. Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom 10. All right, so that is NPD. There was something else that Matt shared. I don't see it here now. I don't recall the numbers here. Oh, here we go. Matt also mentioned through each console's first 43 months in the market here in the U.S., PlayStation 5 unit sales lead those of PlayStation 4 by 8%, while Xbox Series trails Xbox One by 13% and remains now slightly behind the Xbox 360. So that was some additional information that he shared as well. He also said May spending on accessories dropped 8% when compared to a year ago to $448 million. Headset and headphones spending growth 10% in May when compared to a year ago was offset by a 12% dip in GamePad spending. The PlayStation Portal was the best-selling accessory in dollar sales for both May and 2024 year to date. Logic, remember when everyone would ask us who that was for? The PlayStation Portal?
Yep.
All right.
Or that the DualSense Edge was a miss because of battery life.
I tell you, man, some of the takes, man. Oh, yeah, the battery. Remember that? Oh, my goodness.
They need to take themselves outside, give themselves a couple of good uppercuts, and then a good long hard look.
I just some of the stuff that I see and read, I just shake my head. All right, I do want to move on to Xbox increases Game Pass prices. They have introduced some new tiers. So
someone got it right from the start, and someone still can't figure out what they're doing is wrong.
All right. So the new tier is Xbox Game Pass Standard, which will cost $14.99 a month. And that does not include day-and-date releases. Will include a catalog of games, back catalog. We don't know if and when Microsoft will release their first-party content into that tier. It is rumored. It could be 6 to 12 months, but nothing has been confirmed. And then Game Pass Core will increase to almost $20. It's going to increase about $15. It's going to increase from about $60 to about $75. Game Pass Ultimate, which will now be the tier that you need if you want day-and-date first-party games on Game Pass. That's a $3 increase from $16.99 to $19.99 a month. PC Game Pass will go up from $9.99 to $11.99 a month. That will also include day-and-date. Price changes will have come to effect on September 12th, 2024 for existing subscribers, but this is new for new subscribers. And I think I'll give my quick 2 cents. I'm not surprised by the price increase, but I think the issue that I have, as you put it, Logic, the strong arming, if you will, of a consumer to be funneled into the Game Pass Ultimate tier, which is now essentially paywall day and date. So I want to go to you, Logic, first, and then we'll go to Falky. Get your thoughts here.
I think the main summary for me is I think, and I hope, in general, I hope that I don't slander anyone either on the panel or listening, but if the shoe fits, I'll say,
man.
the fact, the fact that a digital entertainment subscription service increased in price is a non-story. It's a nothing burger. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
Not saying you should be happy about it, but I'm saying nobody should be acting like surprised about it or making a super big deal about it.
Can I chime in, Logic?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Yeah. I meant to say that. I don't know if I said that in my 2 cents, like my quick 2 cents. Like, I don't have an issue with the price increase. I understand. And I said this across. Like, this is happening across the board, right? Subscription services, the prices are going up. I understand that, but it's what's the result of that increase and how they position these tiers is. I think where you're going with this is maybe the story here. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's the breakdown of the tier structure, and it's also revisiting how this was messaged and how this rolled out in comparison to the last 2 or 3 months of Xbox PR. So let's talk a little bit about the structure and the tiers, right? So if you do so now today you do have paid multiplayer supported on all tiers, so you are getting that. If you do Xbox Game Pass Core, you get some smattering of, I don't know what it is, a rotating carousel title of 10 to 20, 25, 30 titles, something like that, in the service, which for legacy players who have been on the Xbox platform for a while are probably titles that you either already own or have played and don't want to go back to. I don't really believe that the library is particularly significant, although there may be 1 or 2 like choices in there. So I guess that service is for like the bare bones player who doesn't need any like back catalog of stuff in Game Pass. But of course, that was a strong-armed strong-armed initiative that kicked last year when they told Xbox Live and Silver customers, or I guess at least Xbox Live Gold. I'll say Xbox Live Gold, not Silver. Xbox Live Gold customers that program was going away and you were being flipped to becoming an Xbox Game Pass subscriber. Like, no choice. Your choices were at that time either drop the service entirely or just transition. Now you have Xbox Game Pass Standard. And so at Standard, you do get multiplayer and you get access to Game Pass games, but you don't get day and date, which means that service is positioned very similarly in the way that PlayStation Plus is positioned for its customers. A lot of sturm and drang this week about the differences in the two services. And my commentary on that has been we need to apply critical thought and thinking around how those services are positioned within their ecosystems. Xbox markets Game Pass as if, regardless of what Phil says about it's not essential, we're giving you choices, we're giving you options. Game Pass is never going to become more than XX percentage of our portfolio. Let's recall that 2022 TGAs, not one Xbox was shown, but Game Pass was advertised every 15 minutes. Game Pass is a key strategic initiative. Satya Nadella's bonus structure was never based on Xbox consoles sold, but he did have an incentive in his pay structure about Game Pass. And so Game Pass is a key strategic tenet. It is something that Xbox constantly puts in front of your face and constantly says is a great deal for you. PlayStation, not so much. PlayStation Plus is something that you buy mostly as a backlog play, mostly for their most loyal customers. They don't say anything about PlayStation Plus subscriptions other than maybe once a quarter at earnings calls. And it's not a big drumbeat, big deal, right? Timpani drum roll about how well that service is doing. Those services are positioned and marketed entirely differently for their platforms. So Xbox Game Pass Standard now looks a lot like what PlayStation Plus is for PlayStation users. Then you've got the PC Play, which just is basically structured around the notion that PC players just aren't going to put up with a ton of mess. And so there's not a ton of stuff kind of in a draconian manner kept, playing keep away from those PC customers. And then you have Ultimate. So now let's talk about the 3 recent announcements and PR events that have happened. One, we had, Xbox Game Pass is coming to Amazon Fire TV sticks and it's going to be available on Amazon, right? That was put out. One thing, the dots that need to be connected are that by its inherent nature means it is not Game Pass. It's Xbox Cloud Gaming, XCG, which is only available on Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, which means in order to access it on an Amazon Fire TV stick, you need to be signed up for a subscription, which now this week, because here comes the right hook, is now $20, right? We also recently announced that Call of Duty is coming to Game Pass. But guess what? Now, Call of Duty Day and Date, if you want to get in the pool and play multiplayer Call of Duty, which is the most valued aspect of Call of Duty, although you would argue that it's Warzone, but Warzone is always free to play anyway. So the get is Call of Duty, and the big get in Call of Duty is multiplayer. But you don't get multiplayer if you don't get Day and Date, or at least you don't get it right away. Who knows when it's showing up? And the way it was already positioned when Xbox Game Pass console didn't have multiplayer, you weren't going to be able to access the multiplayer anyway. So since it's been announced, everybody running around saying Call of Duty on Game Pass is such a big deal. It is not such a big deal. It is only a big deal for the people who are on Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. Yet again, another incentive strong-arming you to go to the top tier of the service. And then the last thing that I'll mention that's been disingenuous is Phil Spencer came out on stage in June after the Summer Game Fest Xbox Showcase event and did that Dong and Pony show with Ryan McCaffrey, which in my opinion was completely staged, completely fabricated, pre-rehearsed, with a bunch of softball questions made to elicit a bunch of pom-pom cheerleading answers for the Xbox people in the room while fluffers were going around telling them to act excited.
You really didn't like that interview.
Thank God he didn't do the splits. Thank God he didn't do the splits.
So
the high kicks.
And the thing that I posted on Twitter yesterday is Phil Spencer said, I'm not going to do slimy platform stuff to tell you what to do what I want you to do. I'm going to give you choice.
No.
Well, Phil, you haven't really given people choice. You really kind of boxed them into a corner, and you've basically telegraphed to them, don't bother with Game Pass unless you're going to do Game Pass Ultimate, because that's the only reason for you to be excited about Call of Duty.
Hey, Logic, can I play devil's advocate here?
Yeah,
go ahead.
Can I do my math first?
Yeah,
and then just very quickly to go over the math that I posted on Twitter yesterday. Yeah. If you're excited about Call of Duty and you're going to do which is going to drive you to have to do Game Pass Ultimate. If you claim you're excited about Call of Duty going to Game Pass, it only matters if it's on Game Pass Ultimate. You're now paying $20 a month. That's $240 a year. You also have to buy your season passes, which are $10 per season pass. There's 6 seasons in a Call of Duty, right? 1 year time increment. So you're paying $240 plus $60. So you're at $300 to be on Game Pass Ultimate to get access to Call of Duty day one and participate in all 6 seasons, plus your microtransactions and your skins and all that stuff. Right? That's the incentive that's being rolled out for you. I'm going to play Call of Duty as I do every year and as I have for the last 5 years. So therefore I actually know the ecosystem and I actually know what's going on and I'm paying attention to it. Not these guys who are running around saying they're excited about Call of Duty when they haven't played it in 15 years, but now they say they're excited about it being in Game Pass, is my point. I'm going to pay $70 for the game, $60 for my battle passes. I'm at $130. Yeah, and yes, yay verily, you're getting additional games if you're on Game Pass Ultimate, and you can actually, if you with that, you will actually, if you're on Game Pass Ultimate and you get access to Call of Duty, you don't have to buy the battle passes. You can still play Call of Duty. You just don't get access to all the awards and stuff that come out of matriculating the battle pass. So my point is it's not nearly as good a deal as you're told it is at surface level. I'm sorry, go ahead, Brad.
He's lost for words, is he?
He may have had to step away for a second. I noticed that there was some.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? I have my mic muted. I apologize. What I was asking. Well, my mic was muted. It was like the Phil Spencer quote. I'm not doing slimy platform stuff. Was that this? That was this week?
No. That was the Ryan McCaffrey interview.
Oh, Ryan McCaffrey. Okay, gotcha. And you're saying he's not. He basically said something to the effect he's not taking away choice, right?
Well, he said I'm not going to do slimy platform things to make you do what I want you to do. I'm going to give players choice. Yeah, and I'm like, no, you are doing slimy platform things, and you're not giving people choice. You're giving them a strong arm incentive, like the mafia.
Yeah,
you're coming to me and telling me that I need sanitation service. Well, and I tell you, no, I don't. I can get that from the city, and you say, oh yeah, but you're not going to get the protection that you're going to need.
But therein lies the choice, though. That's why I was going to play devil's advocate. Like technically, there's a choice, but the choice may not be in your best interest, right?
Yeah, my choice is to be taking a dunk in the Brooklyn Bay wearing my concrete galoshes.
With the fishes. No, I mean, but you technically get a choice. But I'm not. I'm just playing devil's advocate because I still think like there's choice there, but I think just given how big that franchise is, and given the fact that they're going to basically, like I said this, they're going to rub your face in the fact that if you don't subscribe to the Ultimate tier, you're missing out on all the the day and date stuff. Because that stuff's going to be plastered everywhere. Indiana Jones comes out, play day and date Game Pass Ultimate. Okay, play Perfect Dark Zero comes out, or whatever it's going to be called. Perfect Dark comes out. Play day and date on Game Pass Ultimate. And I think that's kind of where I was. Where I agree with you. It's kind of that strong arming into funneling people into Game Pass, and I agree with you, Logic, about that. There are differences, and because I saw this too, and I'm sorry, fuck, I'll give you the mic here just a second, but I did see a lot of people comparing this to when PlayStation raised prices, and they're saying, oh, people weren't upset when PlayStation raised prices. Like, oh, well, wait a minute, like, no, actually, in fact, people were, and again, I know Twitter's a small subset of the community, but I remember seeing a lot of the PlayStation content creators being very upset about this, about any kind of increase as relates to, because I remember it was, wait, you increased the price, we're getting less, like what are you guys doing, and being upset about it. But to your point, PlayStation Plus is not a core feature of how or a core mechanism that they're using to funnel gamers into the ecosystem, which Game Pass is.
And there's another 2 points on the causality of maybe content creators were upset, but I think they're talking about, there was an outrage like widespread amongst the community on Twitter, and I get that, but like the causality for that is, number one, it was a $40 increase. At the time, what people were comparing it to is, even at the $40 increase, putting the premium tier at $160 per year, that was still way less than Game Pass, which had also just recently increased prices in June. So 2 months prior, Game Pass had increased prices to where Game Pass Ultimate was $204 a year. So the effect of that, in the voice tracking and the PR and the optic on that, when it hits, is they're increasing prices to $160 a year, but I'm still paying $44 less than Game Pass Ultimate. The other thing is that a lot of those consumers, because PlayStation has a way for you to pay annually and thereby come in cheaper, lots of people, like I was subscribed for a year. So when you say, hey, I'm raising your price by $40, I'm like, okay, whatever. You're raising my price by $40 next year when I owe my next payment. And if I have time to go run off and shut off auto renew, then I have time to think about it. It's just, of course, you're not going to elicit the same type of reaction from people when it's something that's not directly in their windshield and something they have to deal with right now.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to mention too, Logic, is again, I'm not going to speak for Falky, but at least for me and Logic here, I don't think we have. Like you said, like the story isn't the price increase. We all get it; those things are going to happen. It's the way that they're, as you mentioned, kind of strong arming people into funneling them into Game Pass Ultimate now, where that's the only place you're going to be able to enjoy their first party games day and date. The other thing too is we talk about messaging. You talked about Phil Spencer. What's interesting is that about a year ago, they had said to the CMA, the FTC, that the acquisition of ABK would result in a increase of price to Game Pass, and that's not what's happened here. And one of the things I said on Crossfire on Thursday was that, look, I understand people still. I see people say, I'm going to pay the $20, and that's fair if you see value in that. I'm not going to disparage anyone for that. Value is subjective, and there's people out there that I see for what 47 did there in the chat, but I almost look, when the acquisition was going down, and you heard me say this on Thursday, Falky, what we said was, be careful what you wish for. Everyone was like, oh, this is great. This is going to be great for consumers. You guys walked yourself into a price increase. Let's not do that as consumers, please. I understand that prices are going to increase, but I'm not going to incentivize or be a mouthpiece for that increase to happen. So let's just, I hope a lesson's learned here. Let's not do that, because I do believe that that's what happened in this case too. That the cost of the acquisition, the $69 billion, and I said this on Crossfire, it's not free money. As you like to refer to her, Logic, Amy the Hood. Amy the Hood wants her money back. That's the best nickname, by the way. Amy the Hood wants her money back. And then some. And then some. Okay? And it's not just the money they spent on ABK, by the way. It's the incurred costs. And in fact, I know you could talk about this in length. The incurred operational costs of running ABK, the ABK business. So there's that too. And let's not do that as consumers. I understand these increases are going to happen, but let's not walk ourselves into those increases or advocate against ourselves. So go ahead, Falky.
Yeah, where do you want me to start?
I know you have a lot to say about this, so I mean, I don't know. Anywhere, Falky. I mean, give us. I mean, I imagine. I don't think. Do you agree with Logic? Like what Logic and I are saying, like the news story, particularly what Logic saying, the news story isn't really the price increase. It's everything under that.
Oh, yeah. So the devil's in the detail, as it always is.
Yes.
And I do agree with him. It's a nothing burger. We knew this was happening. We could see this coming a mile away. It's how it's happened and what they've done to it. So we've now got Game Pass Lite, which is, I don't know what benefit you would get out of having it. But But and hey, watch out. That's probably where they're going to pump the ads into when they finally turn those bloody things on.
The
And then
beer
they'll
ads?
say, hey, if you don't want the ads, got to go up to Ultimate. But
Oh,
what
Falky, don't say that.
Well,
Yeah, you know what?
On the wall for it, surely.
I don't. I hate. You know what? Yeah, I could see that. we're seeing it right now with Amazon Prime and. Yeah, go ahead.
So, but it's not going to work because Netflix bailed out of their version of having ad-supported bits and pieces because they just couldn't get the data to get the ad piece right. But we're not talking about Netflix. So they've got now GamePass Lite, which will get you, I don't know, for what is it, $15 a month? It'll get you a small catalog of games, but you don't get day and date, and you don't get something else. Oh, you don't get EA Play either in the base version. If you want EA Play and all, I think I'm not sure if Ubisoft Plus is involved in that as well. But if you want EA Play, you've now got to go with the ultimate level as well. So to get everything which you were getting for $1 a month or $1 for 3 months, if you were smart enough to stack everything 12 months ago, you've now got to pay $20 a month to get. So that's a pretty egregious jump, if you ask me. But we've found out since that you can't turn your reward points over to a GP subscription anymore. But they have started sending out, for those who've cancelled, you can resubscribe and we'll give you $1 or whatever it is for the first month as long as you jump on Ultimate, and then your subscription kicks in from the 3rd week of that 1 month. Which again is pretty egregious, but it's almost like they're trying to have a bet each way and say, when the newcomers, like you're saying before with PS Plus and even the Nintendo Online service, they're designed as a back catalogue option for the nostalgic gamer who wants to go back to old games, or the newcomers to gaming so that they can access a catalogue and feel like they're getting some value to play stuff and get them hooked if they're not sure what they want to play. So there's a couple of different points that they're aiming at, but it doesn't detract away from their core business, which is we sell games. We make games, we publish games, we offer games, we sell games. And I agree with what you said. PlayStation and Nintendo and even Steam aren't there primarily with their subscription service tied into their senior executives and chief C-suite executives' performance. But I would point out that in the last couple of years, the impact of Game Pass has significantly diminished in the impact it has on getting their bonuses. But I digress. They're trying very hard to jam this thing up down people's throats and to get it to make money. But again, when you consider how much revenue is raised out of this subscription service as a total of Xbox's overall revenue, which 90% of it is allocated in anyway, the impost is still somewhere, before they bought ABK, they said 10 to 15% of total gaming revenue comes from Xbox services, which includes Game Pass. Based on the 2023 financial reports, that would have been, this is pre-ABK, that would have been barely $2 billion. I think it was like 1.6, if I recall, which was only a third of what its potential should have been. So they're leaving 2/3 of their potential revenue from subscriptions on the table. That doesn't bode well, like in terms of revenue. That is horrible. They're actually converting 1/3 of their subscriptions into revenue, based on what its full potential could be. So they got to fix that as a problem. Next problem they have is that once you bring ABK into the fold, now you've got to generate a crap load more, because that 10 to 15% of total gaming revenue coming from gaming services is now being diluted significantly. You have not increased your user base in terms of subscriptions, from what we can understand and what we've seen. And your revenue has increased though, so it's probably performing less than 10% if they're lucky. But that's not translating to a bottom line margin either. So they're between a rock and a hard place on this thing. They're going to have to crank it up even higher than this if they want it to be a serious contender to actually making some money for them. But that's not the first problem they've got. The first problem is getting everyone who is a subscriber to actually pay their full fee. And I don't think they're going to get the conversion rate that they're expecting, particularly when 2/3 of your subscription base was not effectively not paying for this thing anyway. So good luck with that one. I would have started there rather than price rises, but you know they don't pay me for my opinion. Otherwise, they'd probably get some pretty harsh truths on it. The conversion rate not being optional, like they just basically said, "Oh, if you're on this, you're now being moved up to that. If you don't like it, you got to opt out." No, that's not right. And having these different versions across PC and console because they see the markets as different, well, that's great. But why wouldn't you seek to standardize this thing? There's like 6 or 7 different options for it now. And if you're going to have it offered on PC, why would you be trying to cannibalize your sales on PC by offering a subscription service that doesn't give you the full benefit of accessing all your games? It's like you're punishing the console player, but then you're telling them they don't need a console. That's great. They don't need a console. They just need the Game Pass. So take away their access point through the console and say, hey, you can get it through a Fire Stick. Well, that's cloud gaming. That's not console Game Pass. Or you can play it on PC. Great. You want me to buy one of those crappy Surface Pro things that doesn't work most of the time? All right. Otherwise, I've got my own PC. And it's like, well, I'm not, as Logic pointed out, I'm not going to pay $240 a year to access COD. I'll just buy it from Steam or I'll buy it from wherever. Because they backed themselves into a corner where they said, by us buying ABK, we will make the games available everywhere. All right, cool. So even trying to leverage COD by saying we're going to put it in Game Pass, and everyone goes, yeah, great. It's going to destroy PlayStation, blah, blah, blah. Awesome. You just stuck it behind a paywall that's got no chance of doing that, which means that you don't think people are going to pick it up and run with it, and you can't afford to give it away for free. We could have told you that because we were telling you that 18 months ago. But, let's have all the influencers look like they're shocked and that this is a complete surprise and no one can understand how could this possibly happen. And, it's deflection 101. Spencer's sitting there at an interview which is completely scripted, carrying on about, we're not going to do these slimy tactics, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that. And again, the understanding of individuals that live in the Twitter sphere or the Twitter dome, it's beyond me that they've just got no comprehension. Put a tweet out there, completely satirical, knowing exactly what was going to happen. And I said, so, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's rumoured that they're doing this. Does that mean that they're now putting day and date behind a paywall, tongue in cheek? But so many people got so upset about this, they felt that they had to tell me that I was an idiot. Like, can you guys not see the humour in this? Do you not see the satire in this? Like, people responding, isn't buying games, putting games behind a paywall? I'm like, you guys are fucking crazy.
What?
6 months ago.
Oh my goodness.
You could have used your reward points to buy 12 months worth of Game Pass and had access to day and date games, and you would not have had to have spent 1 cent. Not 1 cent. That loophole was still open.
I'm shocked.
If you weren't exploiting it, then shame on you for being silly enough to pay money for something.
Mm-hmm.
But now that loophole is closed. You can't get day and date games going forward, even with your and I believe this is correct. I'm yet to be proven wrong, and I'm happy to be proven wrong. But because of how this thing is an auto rollover for an update for the console people, you're not going to get day and date games once this date kicks over unless you upgrade. So everything at that June showcase where they proudly thumped their chest and said, play it day one on Game Pass, play it day one on Game Pass. Unless you get upgraded, you can go suck eggs because you're not going to get those games day one on Game Pass unless you upgrade.
What have I been saying, BRAP, since last year with the whole Starfield thing about the 3 days early access? It started telegraphing and painting a picture.
It was a paywall.
And yes, well, that was only 3 days. But what did I start saying? I started saying that they're starting to build the dialogue in the voice track about it's day and date for some people, but not day and date for everyone.
Yes, I remember that.
And now we see the further extrapolation of that right out into the tiers.
Yeah.
Because what that thing was a litmus test, right? Because what they looked at, I guarantee, is how many people were on Game Pass and paid the extra money that was needed to get access to Starfield for the 3 days early. And that gave them the telemetry to know that there was value in splitting that into a separate tier.
That's a great point, Logic, and I want to say that early access did pretty well for them. And so, when as I'm thinking about your point about the summer interview with Brian McCaffrey and what Falke just said, and people were kind of laughing at him. I can't believe someone said paying for a game is a paywall within itself. That's correct. But yeah, I mean, this, we have to imagine this was something that they just decided to flip the switch when they made the announcement this week. That this has probably gone back, maybe potentially to that Starfield early access trial, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'll hand it back to you here in a second, Brett. But one of the things I've constantly talked about in the dialogue in here and everywhere else that I've been writing and blogging and everything on for the last 20 plus years is that Microsoft is one of the best in the game about gaining and accessing market telemetry and digital telemetry and applying that to business analytics and having that inform their pricing structure. When they pull a feature, it's not because they just did it arbitrarily. When they do things in structured tiers like this, they're not just making guesses at what the markets are. It is based on telemetry, and it's based on all of the information that they're getting back from all of their deployed products in user consumption.
Yeah, 100% agree. And the two gentlemen, I suppose I'm speaking directly to anyone who's listening to this now or in the future. The two gentlemen that are on this panel with myself will understand exactly what I mean for this next comment. You've ever used a Microsoft business product that is subscription based, like 365 or Dynamics or Enterprise, you can see that glaringly coming through with what they're trying to do with this subscription service in Game Pass. They are basically taking their business to business model and jamming it into the business to consumer place. And it's not fun because they will screw you pretty hard.
I don't disagree, Falke, from decades of, from a long time of seeing this whole maturation of like the Satya Nadella strategy about, moving to software as a service and seeing, like, being familiar with not only how they structure consumer subscription tiers, but also very familiar with how they structure them in the enterprise, and knowing that there are so many instances of subscription SKUs that I look at and I'm like, that tier, that SKU is absolutely worthless. Like, why would you buy that?
Oh, it every day you look at it and you go, why would you even offer that? And then the people that are actually utilizing it have been sold an absolute dog's breakfast. My favourite saying, and it's probably more of an Australian saying, is they put us over a barrel and they forgot the lube.
Oh, well,
and the analogy I use with BRAP is like, this is if you've ever bought a house, this is like the classic thing of the home inspection, right? Yeah. This is, look, out of the home inspection, I'm going to put 10 things on the list that I demand that the seller fix. But the reality is 2 or 3 of those things on that list I don't give a crap about. I just want them to hopefully go after one of those 3 things and feel like they've scored a win in the negotiation. But really the only things I care about on this list are like these 2 or 3 things. But I'm giving them some MacGuffins to go after and take off the pile because they think that they'll have made a win in the negotiation.
Make them feel it's sales tactics 101. Present XYZ and then take X away and make them feel like they've had a win, and they will feel really happy about their purchase, even though you've probably just pumped them for 10 times more than what they should have paid for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Look, the value proposition, and people have been on. Sorry,
Go ahead.
The value proposition is completely void at this point. The argument that it's the best value in gaming, got to shit. It is no longer there on this point. It can't be. Because what's the value? Where's the value proposition? Everything that 6 months ago you were promised you were getting for nothing is now locked up behind this massive payment increase. It doesn't make it any better. It makes it more difficult to access certain things anyway, because they're telling you don't need a console to do it. And all these different versions and different price points and all that. What do consumers like? Why is Apple so damn successful? Consumers like straight, sensible, non-complex. They like simple. Consumers, as a broad demographic, like simple. Plug and play. That's what they want. Very simple. And the 3-tiered PlayStation version was confusing enough for a lot of people, and now you've got a permutation matrix which is potentially 14 different outcomes from what they've just announced. And that when we've been told that this is not the end of it, there's more details to come. Good luck. They're milking their core base so hard at the moment, and they're having key supporters basically give up on them. It's just, the multiple different pathways that they're going on this thing. The sooner they pull the plug and just go publisher only, the better. Really, it at this point, their competition is not Amazon and Google and whatnot. In terms of gaming, their competition is EA and Ubisoft. And they're not going to beat those two. They're so poorly positioned, and not just within gaming, across a lot of different parts of the Microsoft business. I really don't know how Satcher's still got his job. But anyway, they're running third in nearly every major individual component that they are part of as a business. The only reason why Microsoft is number one in a lot of these areas is because of the synergy they have across the entirety of the business. If they break one of those legs on that tripod, they're screwed. They're genuinely screwed. They're running third in terms of cloud offerings, behind AWS and Google.
I thought they were second behind AWS and cloud. No,
they're running third. Google's absolutely pounding them at the moment because Google's focused on bringing that part of their business up and try to compete with AWS. They're running second in a lot of their. They're not even close to being top 3 in their AI inputs. They're not, and intelligent computing. They're running a distant way behind on their hardware everywhere. The only reason why they are as far up as they are is because they managed to get the whole thing to work harmoniously. And I'll openly admit this. I think Microsoft's a great option as a business solution. If you need a complete back-end architecture for your organization and front-end software, and you want to make it simple to use, and you can get the right people to come in and deploy it within the build and the setup, it's quite a simple thing to do. You just go in and turn on and turn off what you need in terms of your licensing matrix, and happy days. A one-stop shop, the whole thing works. You get your documents, your systems, processes, business workflows, all the rest of it. It's a one-stop shop, which is great, but the problem is once you're hooked in on the pricing at the front end, by the third year you're getting put over that barrel. And they'll allow you to walk out of it, but you can't. Once you're in, you can't walk out of it into a likable product. If you try to bail out of it, you'd have to set up your back end on an AWS or shift to Google, and then you're not going to get the full business suite because you've still got to run your finance software and all your other software. You'd be taking that out to somewhere else. But that doesn't even touch on gaming, but that's how Microsoft gets you to do it. And they're deploying that model into their subscription service now. They basically said, here's everyone that's on it. Now we're going to crank it up to this, and you've got to pay for it or you can find somewhere else. And nowhere else has got it.
It sounds like that's not just the subscription business, but I think it sounds like they're trying to deploy that model into the gaming industry. And I think you mentioned this earlier today, Logic, when you refer to that when you were discussing choke point capitalism or enshittification. And I think you mentioned what Sarah Bonnet said. Was it last year? I forget that interview she had.
Early 2023.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I
do want to voice just a slight difference of opinion. Not that this is like, a super philosophical or intellectual, complete disagreement. So if I were an if I was a primary Xbox consumer, I do think that there's still a value proposition in Game Pass Ultimate. I don't think it's for the reasons that they have advertised and marketed and voice tracked. I think that is BS. But I think for a certain type of consumer who wants to be able to access day and date games and they don't want to be bothered, I think not a huge part of the market, but there are people who are content creators. One of the reasons why I was subscribed to Game Pass Ultimate was because when, any effort to defray, right, my need to go out and access a game without just going and buying it when there might be 2, 3, or other 4 games in flight that I might want, was good for me for a time. I've talked a little bit about like the soccer mom effect. Don't take any offense to that. It just I'm working on a better label. I just don't have one right here now at my fingertips. But like the soccer mom effect of, hey, little Johnny wants a console. I'm going to go out and buy something low cost, and I'm just going to sign them up for Game Pass, and I'm going to pass it to them and say, here's your console. You can access a crap ton catalog of 500 plus games. Don't bother me. Don't come at me asking me for $70 video games every week or every month. Right? I think there are demographics and parts of the addressable market that it is a value proposition for. What I do agree with everyone, and what I do think is that yes, but all of the tiers below that, I question the applicability of those. Minus PC Game Pass, right? That makes sense as an adjunct bolt-on for PC gamers who need that volume. Although again, I question, if you're on Steam and games are on sale so much and things are so incredibly cheap, like you could literally take that PC Game Pass money and point it at like games that go on sale on Steam every month and pick up an additional game. So I don't know that there's the starvation and FOMO on PC that there might be that would drive Game Pass otherwise. But I do think there's a value proposition for Game Pass Ultimate if you're living in the ecosystem and you're consuming from it, and it's a bolt-on like primary service for you. That makes sense. I think you are getting duped by the messaging of, we bought COD, we're going to put it in Game Pass, we're going to put all these things in there. One of the things that Everboard mentioned is like if you want to access the stuff via cloud gaming, remember that the cloud gaming deal went to Ubisoft. So none of the Activision Blizzard portfolio is showing up on Xbox Cloud Gaming unless it's via Ubisoft, and that's yet another business arrangement that has to be worked out. So I think that there are consumers that it makes sense for, based on their consumption type and their consumption style. I just don't think it's nearly as unilateral as people would have had you believe before.
Mm-hmm. Well, I said this earlier in the week when they made this announcement. I think they know their core is going to stick around, the people that want it, and they're going to. And this is about squeezing as many more pennies out of them that they can, and really, I think to boost those revenue numbers for Game Pass, because those folks aren't leaving. I am not. God, I love being on PC now, right? Like I was telling everyone, go get a PC, because we were only paying $11, and we get free multiplayer or free online multiplayer. We don't have to pay for that. It's not paywall like the way it is on consoles. But I guess for me, I just wonder. Because I keep thinking about, you mentioned, you referred to her as the game launch, Amy the Hood. I'm just wondering, like, if there's going to be another increase shortly again, and that's because I keep going back to that $69 billion investment, cash, all the other amounts of money they spent, the fact that now they have to somehow compensate for cannibalization of games of games software sales. Like I could see another increase at some point. I don't know if within the next year, but I think we should all be assume that they're going to increase the price again. And I think especially as they start increasing, assuming they do, increasing the cadence of big releases. And if these releases are really good games, games that are in the conversation or game of the year, games that receive recognition by industry peers at award shows like GDC and DICE. I think that they could. I could see them raising the price of Game Pass, and to that point of the increase of price of Game Pass Ultimate. I said this on Thursday. I want to see a more consistent output for me, BRAP. I'm only speaking for myself. I think Ryan Landis coined the term AAA BRAP. But I want to see them crank out more AAA quality games. And they just can't be okay games. I'm talking about like 8s, 9s, and 10s. That's me. So, any other thoughts, gentlemen?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Falky.
I have concerns. I have some concerns, but I have some concerns. However, only time will tell if this is a sensible option or not. I do agree that their core is going to flip over and just basically get on their knees and pay whatever they got to pay. So I still suspect that the fact that they weren't realizing more than 50% of their subscription base into a full fee pay is damning in itself, and this isn't going to solve that problem. It's only putting a band-aid over a gunshot wound, really. The other problem that I have is this isn't going to even go close to making any kind of impact in covering that purchase. Spend $70 billion on an area that, if I find the number here, that their content and services revenue growth has been lackluster, to say the least, over the last 3 years, when compared to other parts of the organization within Microsoft, where they are like clockwork doing in excess of 20% revenue growth in their intelligent cloud and their intelligent computing, and cloud offerings, which have got a gross margins over the 70% mark, might I add, would have made more sense to have invested in there and got a better return on that deployable capital. However, they have made a decision that they want to give this one last Hail Mary, and all the best to them. I don't think it's going to work. I think they're going to find that they'll get a better return out of selling the games on other platforms than they will out of trying to rank up the price of their subscription service and basically screwing people over.
By the way, I want to address Captain Ply in the chat. It's not the same, sir. It is not the same. All right. Any other thoughts before we wrap up the show, gentlemen? I know Falky just had some last words here. Logic? All right, I'm assuming that's a no from Logic, but go ahead.
No, nothing to add.
All right. Well, look, I want to thank everyone in the live chat for joining us this afternoon. I really appreciate the time and the support, as always. Please, if you haven't done so, smash the like button. Helps out the channel, helps people find the channel. If you're new, subscribe, hit the bell notification. Also want to give a big thank you to Falky, Falky, I got to say, even though it's 5 a.m, you look wide awake, sir.
Mate, numbers get me excited.
Yeah, I can tell. You're very passionate about numbers, but you wouldn't be doing what you're doing if you weren't, right?
Yeah, no, it's true. I'm one of the very lucky people who found something that he enjoys doing and turned it into a job.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You have to love it. I mean, I've come across bean counters throughout my career who tried it and they just weren't good at it because they didn't love it. It's like one of the things you have to love. It's not some of us outside would say it's not the sexiest of jobs, right? But it's a very important job. And it, you absolutely have to love it and be passionate about it. But Falky, again, I thank you so much. I know it's early over there. It's now 7 a.m?
Yep, just going past 7 a.m. and we got a lovely sunrise happening.
Yeah,
it's cold out there though.
I hope your wife's not upset that you're on with us at 5 a.m.
Mate, she's still asleep. She'll probably be asleep. Young fella's asleep as well for probably another hour and a half. So it's good. It works well for me. I get to have a chat about stuff that I enjoy, and I'm passionate with people that I consider very, very good friends. And yeah, I don't have to worry about getting yelled at.
Not by us, but maybe people in the live chat.
They can suck eggs if they don't like it.
All right, Falky. Well, thank you so much again for your time. Logic, look, you have been on a whirlwind tour of sorts through the podcasting circuit. Thank you again for joining this afternoon. I appreciate it as well. Again, you've had some. This is number 3, right? Is there any other podcasts today for you?
No, not scheduled for today.
All right, just some sitting down and gaming then, right?
Correct. Yeah, I'll be jumping on COD here as soon as we shortly after we get off.
Yeah, well, apparently I own COD 3 now, and I'm not happy at Sony, by the way. Seriously, F Sony and their return policy and their customer service. I'm furious. I'll have to share that on another BRAP. Furious, and then threatening to shut down my account. By the way, because I'm disputing charges that I didn't authorize. So it's another conversation. I don't know, Falcon. You know anyone at PlayStation? You seem like you're well connected.
I know a few people, but yeah, not in the returns department. I think that's quite a small business unit. But I mean, you're a self-confessed or self-professed PC elitist. What did you expect?
Yeah, right. I was like, hey, you know what? That's fine. Shut down my account. I'll wait for your games to come on PC then.
Well, yeah, it's Sony customer support's not the greatest, and they're probably never going to be any good. But you don't get rich by giving money back in a hurry. So
no, I understand that. I get it, but still, it's like at least give me a one-off. Like I was 4 days outside the return window, and it's just
Brad,
yeah.
If they weren't jerks to you, they wouldn't have money on hand to give people refunds for Helldivers 2.
Or maybe the upcoming Concord game.
Question just on that is: are you seeking to get a refund on a normal game purchase, or was it an early access purchase?
Normal game purchase.
Well, there's the issue. They'll happily give the money back on an early access purchase because they don't want the bad publicity. But if it's an old game, good luck.
Capoto said BRAP should have said, "Do you know who I am?" Should have said that. Hey, look, I have a Sean Lane on speed dial. Not to shock you or anything. Yeah, but no, I mean, basically, it was unauthorized purchase. I didn't authorize those purchases. And so I've now disputed that with my credit card company. When I told them that I was doing that, they're like, "Oh, well, we wouldn't advise you doing that because we can shut." And it's interesting. This brings up it made me think about the whole conversation of subscription services, and digital media. Like, if your account gets shut down, you don't have access to that stuff anymore. At least physical.
Correct.
Hey, you know what? Shut my shit down. I still have physical copies, and I have a lot of physical copies of some of the games that I'd want to play. But like Elden Ring, I have it on PC, thank goodness. But that would be another game that I'd have to buy again. So it just everyone's all, subscription services is great. Hillary loves them. Hillary loves subscription services. They're great for America. This is great, all aboard. I mean, like it just There's a downside. I don't think people. Yeah, go ahead.
Was that your Clinton or Bush or Trump or which?
That was Clinton. Definitely not. Clinton. Yeah, definitely not Bush. I don't even know how Bush. I don't even know how Bush. I can't even. I don't know as Bush would say.
I think a lot of people forgot about George W. Bush.
I tell you what, I'd love to have GW running than I'm not going to get political, but anyhow, no, that's not definitely not Trump. Yeah, definitely not Trump. Yeah.
I know we're in the middle of signing off, but just very brief comment about what you're saying about the public service announcements for anybody who is using credit cards to purchase stuff online, particularly through these gaming sites. Do yourself the favour of not storing your details in these services if you can avoid it. I know subscription services are different, but if you're buying stuff, just take the extra minute to pump your numbers in. That way you avoid these unauthorised purchases. It's a pain in the ass, and I know people, it's cool, it was just hit the go button and off we go.
Well, mine were done by one of my kids.
Yeah.
And that's
one of the big things.
But same rule applies, though.
Yeah, I think it was Doom. His young fella spent $1,000 in a month on NBA 23, NBA 24.
Oh man,
something stupid like that. No, it wasn't $1,000. It was $1,000 over 3 months, and just these small transactions. And I've seen countless people firsthand, where they've just pumped their credit card details in, and their kids have just racked up huge bills with Fortnite and Roblox and all the rest of it. Yes, they have these. I'll put your stuff in here and make sure that you authorise your kids' transaction, all the rest of it. Legally, if you've put your numbers in, there doesn't matter where you are in the world, if you've put your numbers in there and you haven't, and it goes through, that's it. It's done. It doesn't matter if it was you, your kids, whoever. You've authorised that transaction to happen. And so do yourselves a favour, do not store your card details in these services for buying stuff.
That's great advice. I don't do it on my mobile devices. I just had it on my PlayStation for just convenience, but I'm not doing that anymore because of what's happened. So that's great advice, Falky. Logic, also, in case you're not aware, AT&T was hacked.
Yep.
And good thing we're on America's network, though.
Well, I don't know. I certainly wouldn't think that insulates us from also being hacked. At some point. Every single one of them will be compromised.
I think Verizon's already been hacked before once, so I'm just trying to make light of that situation. But that's
and BRAP, I don't want to rush you along, but I do have a new GPU sitting out in the hot sun at the front door that Amazon just dumped.
Oh, yes. Don't let that. Yeah, it's hot out there. Don't let it cook. Literally. All right, everyone. Thank you again for watching the show. Hit that like button. We'll be back next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, assuming I don't get sick again. But thank you, everyone. Enjoy the weekend and have fun playing video games because that's what it's all about. And I'm interested to see what kind of or hear what kind of GPU Logic got. So thank you, everyone. We'll catch you next time.